The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you.
Hey, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brennan Trainor. My co-host, Leland Faegre, and on the board, Shanimal Lawson. And we're here today with our perspective on the news. And we're going to start with Afghanistan.
Well, it's front and center, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Okay. So it looks like Biden is actually going to pull out, and maybe faster than he thought, helped on by the Taliban, which is now saying it has 85% of the country under its control and largely without it firing a shot, according to them. What do we know? Well, the neocons are saying that China's going to come in there now and take over the country, and like people like Nikki Haley and so on. But in fact, we know what China is actually doing is getting together with Pakistan and the other statelets in the region, the Muslim former Soviet provinces like Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, and they're going to try to integrate Afghanistan into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is an economic means of bringing Afghanistan's economy forward, and that's good news rather than bad. The only thing China, I think, is worried about as far as Afghanistan is that the East Turkestan Islamic movement, which nobody in America knows about because the mainstream media won't talk about it, but they're the ones.
That's just one of the things they won't talk about.
Yeah, one of the many things they won't talk about. But that is the main reason why they had the problems in Xinjiang is that these Islamists, began infiltrating the mosques and killing or replacing moderate imams with Islamic imams and causing trouble. And
they don't like moderation.
No, they don't.
That's one of the things they really don't care for.
No. And also behind the scenes, people are turning to Russia for diplomacy. And, it used to be in the 19th century, it was Germany and Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor, that people looked to solve problems. And then the 20th century, it was good old USA and Washington, D.C. that we looked to. But now it seems that people are looking to Russia to solve problems. Russia has been involved in the Minsk agreements to try to solve the Ukrainian problem. It's in the Ashtenat, if I pronounce that right, the Astana, I think it's called, process in Syria to try and resolve the problems there. And now they're working with the Taliban to try to integrate them into the diplomatic system. The Taliban says that they want, this is what they're saying, and they do have an English speaker. I don't know if you've seen him. I can't remember his name, but he does speak English. He's been on some of the news.
He went to some of those Taliban universities.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he says that they want to set up an emirate. It will not be a democracy, but it'll be their emirate. They're not interested in joining ISIS or Al-Qaeda because those groups represent Arabs, and they want a worldwide caliphate under their control. And the Taliban says they're not interested in that. They want their own country, their own sovereignty, even though it's not going to be a democracy. And we know that women are going to have a bad time.
It's not going to be a democracy?
No, that's what they're saying. It's going to be an emirate, a caliphate of some kind. Like the Gulf states, only Afghanistan.
You mean like it was 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't build democracy at the point of a gun.
So nation building doesn't work?
No, it doesn't work. Huh. No. And when they asked about gay people, they said gays won't be thrown off the roofs, but rather the walls will fall in on them. So it doesn't look good for the gays either. So, but putting that aside, that's the country the Afghans have said that they want, and maybe after some economic development down the road, things will get better for these people. But in the meantime, we don't have the right to push our Western democracy upon them.
No.
And then so now Russia's also concerned about the opium production. The Taliban said they're against the opium production, but whether or not anything will really happen there's a lot of economic problems there.
Well, that's fantasy.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
That's the only thing that makes any money there.
Right, exactly. Although they do have a lot of resources, so that's what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Well, I think the theory that China will sort of entrap itself again, because every leadership function or leadership role of human history in Afghanistan failed. But if it chooses to go down that road, it must be, rare earth issues, rare earth materials and that sort of thing. That, there's got to be something there to attract.
Well, there is. They do have resources. I think rare earths is certainly one of them. But they do have other resources there. And, China and Pakistan, they're not going to invade Afghanistan. What they want to do is develop it according to the principles of the organization, which is...
And the Belt and Road,
Yeah, the Belt and Road.
All that.
Yeah. Well, and, this Shanghai Cooperative Organization, it's actually as big or bigger than the Euro-American trade unions. It's a very big... It goes through all of Asia now, and it's a very big economic unit now, includes Russia. So
let them at it.
You let them have it. Yeah, exactly. We don't need it. Let them have it. Well, there's a lot of things going on all over the world. The president of Haiti was assassinated. And the people that assassinated him had some ties to the U.S., to the DEA.
Makes you wonder whether it wasn't us.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. We don't know yet.
First thing I thought of.
Right. This Dr. Sinos, who's supposed to be behind it, he could be just a front man for some other people.
He's a front man for
us.
Sliced fresh sandwiches every day, made right before your eyes. The port of Subway could be a smoking number 5 or a classic number 8, or maybe an Italian is your number 1 fave. Whatever you crave, prepare to fall in love. Sliced fresh sandwiches, port of Subs.
Adopt U.S. Kids and the Ad Council.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power, your source for the real news in Nevada and the world. And your host, Brendan Trainor, and here with Leland Faegre. And do you want to do a little more in Haiti?
Can we?
I think we can,
Okay.
probably. Did you know that Haiti was responsible for Thomas Jefferson purchasing the Louisiana territory?
There was a connection there.
Yeah, because the Haiti is the result of the only actual successful slave revolt in history, and the French owned it. They speak French there, and Napoleon tried to reconquer the island twice, and he wasn't able to do it. They defeated him both times.
It was everybody's colonial objective at one point or another.
So Napoleon got so much in debt trying to do that and other things that he sold Louisiana to Thomas Jefferson for $24 million. And then We completely ignored the country for 60 years because the slave owners in the South were afraid that if we recognized Haiti, that it might give their own slaves some ideas. So we didn't do that. And then after that, we neglected them. And then Woodrow Wilson actually occupied the country for 20 years. It was the Republican Herbert Hoover that ended that occupation. And then we supported the Duvalier family, Papa Doc and Baby Doc, very right-wing dictators because they were anti-communist. And then when they elected a left-winger, Aristide, George W. Bush overthrew him because he wasn't politically correct enough. And then during the 90s, the Clintons raped Haiti under the guise of helping it. One of the stories is that Hillary laundered gold that she stole from Libya, from Gaddafi, and then she laundered it through a corporation in Haiti that, and then claimed the gold was mined there, although Haiti has no gold mines.
So I mean, there's nothing those people won't do.
Right. And this Doral region of Florida, where the mercenaries that tried to overthrow the current government, assassinated the president, that is the same general region of Florida that launched what is now called the Bay of Piglets, famed coup against Maduro in Venezuela. Remember that when they were rounded up by fishermen on the shore? Maybe we should just let private charity do its thing and just leave the country alone. When the UN sent peacekeeping troops too, and they was found out that they were having sex with the girls, prostitutes in Haiti, which was a big scandal.
Well, that's not the only place that they...
Yeah, that they rape and and so on.
Pillaged.
Yep. So, this poor country has been...
raped and pillaged.
Raped and pillaged. Chavez was actually donating oil to them when Venezuela was rich, but then after the Saudis produced their first oil shock, I think that was 2004, to try to undermine Russia. Then after that, the oil economy in Venezuela collapsed as well. Of course, they mismanaged it. That's true. So, and then the Caribbean is also exploding in Cuba. And thousands of Cubans protested against the lack of food and COVID vaccinations. And this is the first time in, 20 years that there have been demonstrations in Cuba?
I think it's organized.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the camera shots I saw were almost like there was a director out on the street.
Okay.
And there was a woman saying, yeah, get that, Get that.
Well, they shut down, the Cuban government shut down the social media, so they were probably using a lot of social media afterwards, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there were counter demonstrations. The crowds that were on a statue and climbing a statue and so on, they turned out to be pro-government, carrying...
And they had signs.
Yeah, carrying the signs from the 59 revolution.
And so when we see these kinds of spontaneous revolts, and they've got signs with them, chances are there was organization.
Yep, yeah.
Whatever, I'll do what I want.
So we found out, we got a glimpse of the new Cuban president after the Castros have finally left. Miguel Diaz-Canel.
He doesn't really reveal himself physically, does
no.
he? I mean,
but he was on the streets apparently talking to the people. But
as a result of this.
Yeah, as a result of this.
Prior to...
No, we hadn't seen any announcements or anything from him.
I think he's got his own beach somewhere.
Okay. So, Cuba... Some say, he says that Cuba wants to open up its economy and be more like China. And while, the other people in America just say the commies are just getting rich off the people and they don't care at all. So it's going back and forth, but at least we have some kind of resistance showing there, some kind of demonstrations. Now, whenever the neocons and the right talks about Cuba, they neglect to mention the sanctions and the blockades that we've imposed on them, although that's not the only problem with Cuba. Of course, communism itself is not an engine of growth.
Does Bernie Sanders know this?
Yeah. I don't think so. There's there are a few places on YouTube where you can see videos of Cuba, and it's pretty bad. Some people live on the equivalent of $20 a month as a pension and so on. And
I think the only profession that does well in Cuba is a car restoration.
Yeah.
Those guys got to be making a killing.
Yeah, they must be making a lot of, if you can get the parts.
Yeah. Well, somebody's getting the parts because we haven't seen cars, except in very rare, situations.
From the 50s. Yeah, the cars are all from the 50s and early 60s. So, but one of the things that Trump did was he reinstated the sanctions after Obama loosened them up, and he again called Cuba a state sponsor of terrorism, which I don't think is true. I think that's just a label.
I don't know if it's a sponsor, but it's a sympathizer.
Okay. But once you've got that label, even though the law specifically says that humanitarian aid can come into Cuba, once you have the label of a state sponsor of terrorism, no banks are going to finance it. No governments are going to, send in the.
They have no worthy credit.
Right. So the Cuban situation, we're just going to have to monitor it and let's see what happens. Of course, the mayor of Miami is calling on Biden to send in troops, and they.
That Cuban constituency in Florida is huge.
Yeah, it is.
And they're very animated.
Very animated. Yeah, I've been to a couple of their rallies.
Have you?
Yeah. In the back you can always find them snorting meth, and they do a lot of that. They run a lot of drugs, but they, basically the same thing that we should do to Cuba, we should do with Haiti, except we should take off the sanctions and restrictions. I just saw a correspondent that lives in Cuba, and he said that they were not able to get any respirators even, and so they private COVID respirator, yeah. Private individuals, he said, raised money through GoFundMe pages, and they sent the blueprints down to Cuba, and the Cubans managed to build some on their own.
Well, Trump was offering them for free, so there's no excuse not to have them in Cuba.
Yeah, they couldn't get there, though.
Well, I'd like to know more about that. But
yeah.
I don't think they care about their people. That's pretty much the ongoing dynamic that has affected them so negatively over the course of a couple of generations.
And they claim that they just developed their own vaccine because they couldn't get any from the world. We'll see if that happens or if that's just braggadocio. And, so whether they care about their own country, people, that's one theory. Certainly, the Cubans, the left claims that Cuba did all these great things like education and medicine, but
Fidel established a literacy program
right
when he first came into power.
But you couldn't read just anything, no? You could only read.
Or you couldn't read what you wanted to?
No, you couldn't. But other countries in the region have also developed.
Does Bernie Sanders know this?
Other countries in the region have also developed their educational infrastructure over the years since the Cuban Revolution and their medical infrastructure, and they have very good medicine too. I mean, communism didn't necessarily produce education and medicine for the people there. So
well, they export their doctors, and
they do. That's it's largely propaganda.
Brings back hard currency, and
yeah, they do. They benefit from it, but that's one of the things they're known for is sending their doctors overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'm trying to be as dispassionate as possible because there's a lot of politicians on both sides of the aisle that are going to be talking a lot of stuff that we don't know what the reality is yet and what's going on. But hopefully we'll find out more and have more for you maybe next week.
Did you know how many Americans voted in the 2020 election?
No.
According to Joe Biden?
How many?
150.
150 Americans?
Yeah. That's what he said. Oh, maybe he meant 150 million Americans?
Maybe he did.
Yeah, he just left that million part out.
Did he think about it for 5 seconds before he said it?
Hi, I'm Dr. Dennis Patterson. I'm the founder and owner of Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists. At Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists, we take a comprehensive approach to treating patients with chronic pain in the greater Reno, Tahoe area.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and I'm here with Leland Faegre and Shanimal Lawson.
Who's on the board?
Who's on the board, yes.
Hope he doesn't damage the faders. Because, he's...
Now, this is just in this morning. It's breaking news, so I may not have all the details yet, but it appears that from documents that have been released in the Ghislaine Maxwell pretrial discovery that in 19 what was it? 19, oh gosh, I can't think of
about
the name.
2019?
Yeah, I'm thinking about Bill Clinton, the 1990s.
Okay.
The impeachment.
Right.
Well, Kenneth Starr was leading the impeachment against Bill Clinton.
93, 94.
Yeah, for having an affair with Monica Lewinsky. Ken Starr had an affair with Ghislaine Maxwell. And remember, Newt Gingrich was also having an affair at the time while he was leading the impeachment.
That is correct.
All right.
Now, Ken Starr, he always comes across like the nicest person.
I know. He's such a good Christian Republican.
Yeah.
So, according to these documents, it was Ken Starr that was behind the sweetheart deal that Epstein got in Florida, where he had, weekends off from his, prison sentence for sex trafficking and so on. So, there's so many times we see these politicians that proclaim to be great Christians, and they're, when you dig a little deeper, you find out that they're really not.
You're not going to suggest there's a two-tier justice system, are you?
I would never suggest that.
Okay.
Okay. So, Kamala put her foot in her mouth again, and by insisting that...
I love it when she does that.
Yeah. That rural blacks do not have the means to photocopy their ID when they do mail-in ballots.
Are there any rural blacks?
There are a few black farmers, yeah. I actually was involved in a project way back when in the 60s that involved black farmers in Georgia. The original...
But there can't be too many of them.
No, there aren't too many.
So, who does that really... they haven't thought this out.
No.
They clearly don't know what they're doing. Their messaging is just not spot on.
No. She probably always had assistants to do this sort of thing, like photocopy.
She thought Kinko's was still in business. At least she's self-deprecating.
Maybe she can find a Kinko's on the border that'll do it for her.
Yeah, right.
And the Democratic legislatures in Texas staged an insurrection to disrupt the democratic process.
I look forward to seeing them be arrested when
yes,
they return.
they should.
This is going to be fun.
Yes.
They didn't think this one through either.
No. And they were also photographed on a jet without face masks on a plane.
With a case of Miller Lite. Taking selfies. They considered it a vacation.
Yep.
Well, listen, they've already done the polling, and it didn't go over well.
No, I don't think it would.
Focus groups have already weighed in on this.
Yes. come back.
Give them enough rope and they hang themselves.
Exactly. At the CPAC meeting, former President Trump won 70% of the straw poll, but the GOPs are jockeying for power. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem attacked Governor DeSantis without saying his name.
Yeah, what did she attack him for?
She claimed that he wasn't as pure on COVID as he claims to be, that he shut down beaches and did all this stuff, but so did she.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's the ace calling the kettle black or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, she backed down on the whole transgender biological males in women's sports.
Yeah, she caved on it.
Yeah. So, but they're jockeying around for power, either if not to get the presidential nomination, maybe to get vice president or some other cabinet.
Yeah, because they know
post.
that Pence isn't coming back.
Right.
So they're jockeying for that. But I think it's got to be, my hunch is it'll be a black person.
Oh, you think so?
To solidify the ticket, sure.
Uh-huh. Like Senator Scott or?
Could be Scott. There's a bunch of them out there.
Right. Larry Elder just announced he's going to run for governor.
So, there's lots of opportunity there.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully it'll be an exciting election cycle.
And they know this. The loony left know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a year to pull this off. All the damage they want to do, which they think is in their interest going forward, they have to pull this off in a year's time. That's that's the window of opportunity for them.
Well, socialism is now infrastructure. Mm-hmm. You know that.
Yeah.
They want to spend another $4 trillion, the way Schumer laid it out. Even though we're currently in hyperinflation, beginning 5% a month that's pretty bad.
That's horrible.
Yep, and nobody knows exactly where that's going. Yeah,
and most people have no recollection of what that feels or looks like. You've got to go way back in order to find hyperinflation like that.
The 70s?
Effectively Nixon, yeah.
Yeah.
He inherited it.
Well, yeah, but he pulled us off the gold standard, which made it worse.
And then central banking responded by, responding to wage and price controls by raising rates to the roof. It was just a calamity of errors.
Yeah, you had stagflation. You have high unemployment, high interest rates, and high inflation.
Which is why I don't think gold has gone anywhere lately.
Mm.
It has sort of tested its bottom here recently and has kind of stalled around the 1800 level.
Right.
And I don't see it going anywhere because stagflation is clearly on the horizon if these trends continue. Because it's not as though we haven't been here before.
Right. Yep.
It's not uncharted territory.
Nope. Of course, we had a Paul Volcker in those days, and he did what he could to cut down on the money supply, which helped. It ushered in the expansion of the 1980s.
Imagine having a mortgage in those days of 18. I think it went to 21% on the prime rate, wasn't it?
Wow.
And amazing, huh? For short-term rates, 21%. Unbelievable.
Well, as far as the inoculation for COVID, there was
Let's put masks on 2-year-olds.
Yeah. A new British study found on children under 18 who died from COVID, they found that children under 18 died at a rate of 2 per million from COVID, for a total of 25 children in the study. But
was that Britain?
Yeah. But 20 of them had already had serious underlying conditions. And the vaccines caused severe reactions in 6,000 kids. And 150 kids died from suicide due to the lockdowns.
Right.
So, heck of a job.
But those vaccination reactions were temporary for the most part, right?
Well, I don't know. They were severe. They just said they were severe reactions, whether they were...
Well, the death numbers would suggest that they were temporary.
Your line dog face pony shoulder.
But imagine putting masks on 2-year-olds. This is
Exactly.
this is what Tony Fauci is saying now.
Oh gosh, no. And they've started actually going door to door to try and get you vaccinated.
Yeah, they're actually doing that. Yeah. All they want is information.
Yes.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Will you talk to us?
No, I'm not me.
Yeah.
If they do show up at my door, I'm not
That's-
going to talk to them.
They want to know what you're thinking.
Yes. So,
Big Brother is walking up your footpath.
and then speaking of children, the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir caused an enormous backlash by releasing a song where they sang about coming for your children. And afterwards, they claimed it was a big joke, nothing more.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the humor is. In that.
No. See, they according to them, they issued a statement in which they railed against fundamentalist Christians, but they're mistaken if they think it's just fundamentalist Christians that don't want children exposed to this. There's a lot of people that don't want children exposed to this. Again, in England, they had a library where a guy in a monkey, in order to teach children literacy, they hired a guy in a monkey suit, like a painted monkey suit,
Yeah.
but he had a dildo dangling from between his legs.
Just because
You know the thing.
Yeah, because they know these kinds of things and the behavior and the reactions they'll get from them.
Yes.
And that will encourage them to learn and to be a good student.
Right.
This is the mindset.
And then a newspaper called the Western News inquired about 3 members of the group who had the same last name. They couldn't prove they were the same people, but they had the same last name as 3 convicted pedophiles. And after that news came out, they pulled the video, made it private. Well,
It's amazing how long it takes for them to learn their lessons, if they even have an interest in learning a lesson.
right. Well, it's the law of merited impossibility. There is absolutely no way that we're going to infringe upon the rights of straight people. But when we do, you're going to really deserve it.
Did you know that stem cells are present in all of us, just waiting for an opportunity to regenerate your organs and other body tissues? Studies show that your own stem cells are released into the bloodstream following a trauma. However, a plant-based supplement called RBC Blend has been found to increase stem cells in your blood without trauma.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
I'll edit that out.
Hey, welcome back, and it's time for another Jews in the News. And first, we have to give the mandated Anti-Defamation League announcement that we are, of course, always respectful and understand that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. It is our greatest ally, and they don't throw gay people off of roofs. And always and everywhere, whenever we observe Jews behaving badly, we must remember it's always our fault. Right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Jews in the media in New York City. And we had the Reliable Sources show on CNN.
Jews in the media?
Yes.
There's Jews in the media?
Yeah, there are.
Okay.
You may not be aware of it, but... So on Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter, who is not Jewish, but he's married to a Jewish woman and is bringing his children up Jewish, he interviewed the two brothers, one of the two brothers that work for the media in New York, David and Benjamin Wallace Wells. And he interviewed David. And David is he is the editor of New York Magazine, and he's a major climate alarmist. So he suggested that burning fossil fuels kills 10 million people every year from pollution, which is, get it, a holocaust. It's an annual holocaust each and every year. It's even worse than the Holocaust. Even if that is true, of course, fossil fuels provide life-saving electricity and fuel and provides billions of people with the necessities and pleasures of life.
Well, Wallace Wells probably doesn't know this.
Yeah.
Somebody should tell him.
Yeah. So then David Wallace Wells, he also is known for publishing a story that caused quite a stir in the elite medias called Uninhabitable Earth, which predicts doom, famine, economic collapse, a sun that cooks us all to death, etc., etc.
Because we've only got, what, 8 years left? 8
years? Yeah, after that, we're cooked. Shut up! So, his brother, Benjamin Wallace Wells, is also a liberal writer that writes about politics, including critical race theory. He works at The New Yorker, but has published in New York Magazine, where his brother is the editor. He also writes for other mainstream media publications, Time Magazine, Rolling Stone, and so on.
Now, shouldn't there be some sort of regulation that brothers can't work, in the same town?
Some kind of anti-nepotism law?
Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that would be hard to push through. So when I managed to look up it doesn't sound like very Jewish names, but I managed to look up their history. And Wells's grandfather, Bert Wallace, nee Berthold Wallach, came to the U.S. in 1939. He married a Carol Lomnitz in Germany. And so his father, Henry, that is David David Benjamin Wallace Wells, I'm sorry.
Wallace Wells, yeah.
His father, Henry, died of lung cancer, although he admits his mother, Vivian, was smoked unfiltered cigarettes for 57 years.
But she didn't die from lung cancer.
No, but it must be climate change that killed his father.
Oh, I see.
You see?
Okay.
And he describes her as fleeing the smokestacks through which her relatives were incinerated. You see?
You mean the Holocaust?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have another person that believes in the Holocaust to talk about as well. And that person is named David Sanger. Mm-hmm. And Sanger is the foreign correspondent or national security correspondent at the New York Times. And the thing about him is that he is definitely a neocon and extremely anti-Russian, like so many elite Jews in the media are. So, President Biden and President Putin met in Geneva, and they're setting up a cybersecurity task force to try to deal with the ransomware. And Biden has been remarkably careful for a U.S. president to say that he does not believe that these are state actors, but he wants Russia to pursue cyber criminals on their soil if we give them the information to enact on who that is. In other words, if we have knowledge of the cyber criminals, we would want Russia to do something about it if they're in Russia. But
so far, he hasn't produced any.
No, he hasn't produced anything.
And we can assign that blame to anyone. The technology is there.
Oh, yeah. We know it because of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks.
Right,
and
we know this from
Vault 7.
From Assange.
Just because somebody speaks Russian doesn't mean that they are Russian. Russian is widely spoken in the Ukraine and other parts of Eastern Europe, and it's just does not mean that they're actually Russian. But Dalton and the other neocons continue to frame this issue very differently. they are pressuring Biden to take unilateral action. They're calling for a strike on the Russian servers or Russian banks. Some of them are calling for some kind of special ops. It's all very feverish and completely unrealistic. I mean, I can just see special ops parachuting into Red Square to find the neocons.
It's a big club.
To find the cyber
and you ain't in it.
Yeah. So, and so he's one of these prominent Jewish intellectuals who constantly pushes a belligerent line against Russia. And what we're talking about here, combining the anti-Russian feeling with the Holocaust narrative, is that, well, you know, without the Holocaust, the Jews are extremely afraid that they will just become another ethnic pressure group. And so their insistence on the Holocaust as the central fact of existence in the world today is just all blown all out of proportion.
It's all predicated on that modern
right.
assumption.
That is their suffering. That, in other words, Jewish groups opposed the confirmation that Turkey killed 15 million Armenians,
right,
because 15 million is more than 6 million, and the Armenian genocide then might become greater than the Jewish genocide.
Wouldn't that be something?
And they have to, everything has to center around their story.
Does Flake know this? Because Flake's going to be the new ambassador to Turkey. Did you hear
Is
about
he?
that? Yeah.
No. Jeff Flake?
Yep.
Well, and I'd also like to bring up that New York City is now 12% Jewish. Historically, Jewish populations of more than 5% in any particular region have led to social discord and exploitation. There is no doubt that Hitler and his allies in Romania and the Ukraine killed many Jews. Hitler did not like the Jews because they were a people without a country. He was an ultra-nationalist and wanted everybody to belong to a nation, and also because he believed that they were primarily responsible for things like the sanctions on Germany after World War I and so on, and interest rates, usury, the usual things. So but there are a lot of holes in the narrative. I did read a survey recently. It says 25% of Americans do not believe in the official narrative of the Holocaust. And
which is very high, higher than I would have thought.
Yeah. And there are also 25% of Americans that don't believe in God now. That keeps increasing every census.
Oh yeah, that's been going on for generations.
But the demographics argue against the figure of 6 million. The technology, in other words, gas tanks and crematoria, that also doesn't seem like it was possible to kill 6 million people that way. And then disease. In the final months of the war, we know that typhus wrecked through the concentration camps, and that caused a lot of the horrible emaciated bodies that we saw was due to typhus. So, again, we don't have a real figure, but the $6 million figure, according to the Jewish newspaper Haaretz, which publishes in Israel, the 6 million was a back-of-the-napkin figure written by students at a post-World War II conference during a lunch break. And somehow that is stuck as the official narrative. It's also a mystical number in Jewish religion. 12 is a mystical number, and 6 is half of 12, so 6 million. It's actually been talked about.
We've mentioned this on the show before.
At least since the 19th century. So recently, a U.S. court said that Jews could seize property in Poland that they claimed to have been taken in World War II. Poland responded by passing a law stating that putting a statute of limitation of 30 years on these claims. And of course,
that ought to be enough.
Exactly.
Gosh. How much time do they need?
I know.
Well, you know, Steve Bannon has dropped a bomb on his show yesterday. He said that the state senator Karen Fann, who's the leader there, believes that in the next 10 days we're going to be really surprised by the information coming out of that.
Out of what exactly?
the election fraud in Arizona.
Oh, the election fraud?